Update. Am I the a-hole for losing it and calling my father a weak, pathetic man in front of his family? Original post. My father has always been against any confrontation or arguments. He is extremely passive, refuses to stand up for himself, and avoids any conflict. If someone isn't paying attention while walking and bumps into him, he insists it's his own fault. If his employer would mess up his salary, he wouldn't bother fixing it. If a mechanic didn't properly repair his car, he would just accept it as it is. This unfortunately resulted in a tumultuous childhood with my insanely narcissistic mother. She controlled his every move. She got him to quit his job and be a locked-in stay-at-home dad. She had him do every chore. She insulted him at every step. She cheated on him relentlessly and even brought affair partners into our home. She enjoyed making his life miserable every day, and he never questioned it. My extended family, God bless them, were there for me so many times, as much as they could be. They tried for years to make my father leave, but he never budged. When she would direct her anger onto me in the form of screaming, insulting, or general demeaning, my father never once fought the guts to stand up for me or support me. When I was a kid, if I cried to Dad about something Mom did or said to me, he would sweep it under the rug or just insist I forget about it. Heck, he would even try and justify it. As I grew older, it really set in for me how messed up this was. My mother gladly kicked me out of the house when I was 18, and my father just sat there and looked sullen. Didn't say a damn thing. I joined the Air Force almost immediately and got stationed on the other side of the country. The dynamic was awful, and I could have easily gone down the incel route, if not for therapy and the amazing people I met along the way. It took years for me to get in a better mental space. I was filled with hatred. My mother left my father 2 years after I got stationed and utterly destroyed my father in a divorce. She was killed a year later in a DUI with one of her affair partners. I took a lot of joy in hearing that it took her hours to die, and that's when I really knew I needed help to process things. I'm almost 30 now, have a girlfriend who is perhaps the best thing to ever happen in my life, and fully understands the situation with my family. I have learned to not allow myself to be consumed with anger and resentment by my past, or so I thought, you'll see, and instead put that energy to my future. I've been extraordinarily low contact / near no contact with my father since I left. As much as I try, I cannot make that connection with him. I recently went to a family reunion and brought my girlfriend with me. My father was there as it was his side of the family. They have many issues with him, but he is family, so whatever, I guess. I made sure to avoid him. I was chatting with my uncles when I heard my father talk in the background. He was discussing how a coworker of his was going through a divorce as he discovered his wife was having an affair and was positioned to have a very favorable divorce on his side. My father remarked how his coworker should work instead to forgive his wife, and by his own words, set a good example for unity and forgiveness, and how he believed he set a great example for me in that extent. I swear it was like a switch went off in my head, and I was mentally back to being the rage-filled 18-year-old. All these years, and he never learned a damn thing. I turned to him and asked if he was freaking serious. He looked at me and started to stutter. I know the next minute was pure word vomit and I can't relay it perfectly, but to sum it up, I shouted how he was a pathetic father, a pathetic man. His family all know he's a disgrace of a human being who would rather his son be treated like garbage than defend him because he's a freaking coward. No one would ever see him as an example to live by. His wife would rather sleep with half the neighborhood than even touch him, and he should never, ever believe anyone respects him. I began to derail and ramble between my shouting, and my girlfriend quickly took me out and drove me home. It was insane just how quickly being away from him made me feel better. She just held me when we got back and told me it's okay. Again, best thing to ever happen to me. I was ashamed of how I lost it, and I'm now going through my therapy. That's a given. However, I'm glad I finally unloaded what always needed to be said onto him. Extended family's pretty mixed with reactions. His brothers / my uncle said it was time for him to hear it from me. My grandparents are mad I did that in front of the entire extended family, with some saying I should have done that behind closed doors instead of everyone. Now for the top comments before reading the update. All I can say, based on your post and this interaction, is your anger is deeply misguided, and you're failing to recognize the truly horrifying thing. You're behaving like the mother you actually should hate. Oh, trust me, I fully hate her as well. But she's gone, and there is no use in holding a grudge against a dead person. I'd hoped, though, after his son making him an outsider in his life, his family openly joking face-to-face about his failings as a father, and his ex-wife draining him for everything he had and making him start over in a one-bedroom apartment, his friends slowly leaving his life one at a time out of embarrassment, that he would maybe have at least one moment to reflect, and maybe consider he should have done things differently. It sounds like you finally got to express the pent-up feelings you've carried for so long. While the outburst wasn't ideal, it seems like it was a necessary step towards healing. It's good you're assuming therapy to process this further. Yeah, afterwards it hit me that although it was very cathartic, it definitely wasn't the most appropriate way to handle it, lol. Don't let this concern you too much. You were greatly harmed as a child. While you are an adult, the harm people receive as a child becomes a core part of them, in personality, the way the brain is wired, and even in the physical body. Immune response. Your father's neglect to protect you from abuse came from his passivity. Neglect is abuse. Him allowing another to abuse you while present, he was an active participant. Now, him telling others they should be more like himself, modeling his passivity as a virtue, should create a visceral action in you. This is a critical moment in your healing. An adult finally stood up for the abused child. Someone finally stepped in and said this is not okay. You just happen to be both the abused child and the active adult who stepped up to advocate for the child. Any person who was an adult at a time who could have stepped up and stopped the harm that both your parents put you through don't get to say anything about the way you're handling it now. They had an opportunity to step in and step up. They failed. Live a wonderful life. Be good to yourself. Life can be filled with so much joy and wonder. I hope you can feel the fullness of healing. Now for the update days later. Thanks for the advice and recommendations, even amongst some of the YTAs. However, some of them needed to be addressed because they were either hilarious or cringeworthy. 1. Some of them were very angry and they kind of confused me at first, until I saw their comments further down or saw their profile and saw rants about double standards, or complete non-sequitur ramblings about women. So yeah, not helpful advice, and they were great dark reflections about how I could have turned out if not for the support in my life. 2. Some attempted to portray my dad as a humble, kind, caring, sensitive old man who I'm just being a big bully to. This was a very good insight into how enablers of abuse get away with so much in today's world because so many people forget how they are part of the abuse themselves. 3. Some were attempting to mentally dissect me or have a gotcha moment with me to pull apart my story. That was generally asinine, and I had to step away from those before they asked for my cranial measurements or something. So it was pretty much immediately when I was up the next morning that I realized I needed to resolve the events of last night. I first spoke to my girlfriend and gave a sincere apology for having her see me like that. She reassured me that nothing was wrong. She'd known me for years and has always known me to be level-headed and understands why I kinda snapped. She herself has a history of dealing with narcissistic family, so she absolutely understands the dynamic. She only really told me that it would be best to work on spending time around my extended family, since my father will always be there. I told her don't worry, I'm immediately going to talk to them afterwards to figure that out. So that part's fine. Looked like kind of an ass in front of her, but I'm making sure that doesn't happen again. I also informed her my intentions to resume my therapy just to keep myself steady, which she was happy to hear. I called my grandparents and sincerely apologized as well for putting such a sore dent into their family reunion. That it wasn't appropriate, and while I still feel it felt good to say that to him, it should have been in private and not in front of everyone. I also told them that going forward, as much as I love spending time with them, since the family always hangs out in one group that my father will always be in, for now until I can handle being around him, I need to distance myself occasionally, until I feel comfortable interacting. I told them that I am nor would I ever be establishing an ultimatum or demands of them, and that either way I need to step back. I guess during my apology and explanation, I was kind of just going on a tangent, because my grandfather interrupted me to calm down. He told me that after I left, people kind of separated or slowly started leaving, and they eventually were able to talk to my father one-on-one. I guess seeing me have such a freak out resulted in my grandmother having a mini freak out of her own, when she started talking to my father, resulting in her kicking him out. While I have a great relationship with both, my grandmother has always been extra protective of me, so seeing me that way must have set off a fire in her. My grandfather then said that it has become a bit of an open family secret. My father is failing. His brothers taunt him about it and generally don't have a great relationship with him. And for my grandparents, it's always just and easy. But seeing me the other day and how it still affects me so much has really sunk in for a lot of people that it was really bad. They began to try and say sorry if they didn't do enough, which I very adamantly retorted that they did more than what anyone could have expected. It was very emotional for a minute, but culminated in them telling me that they have decided to distance themselves from my father for the time being, and have given him the ultimatum that unless he has a deep introspective and regularly goes to therapy, that distance may become permanent. My extended family, I've been told, are going to try and reach out or call or whatever, but I asked them if they could relay to them that it's not necessary, and that I'm fine, and I'm sorry for them as well for ruining the day. Which again, they told me I shouldn't apologize for being hurt. Since then, extended family have sent some messages, with the general consensus that it's okay, with some older members complaining about my lack of respect towards my father. And finally, I texted my father hoping to meet at a local coffee shop and have a final talk. I met him and he didn't look good. I think his parents tearing into him finally got the message through. I had so many things I could have said, but I instead asked him first thing if the coworker he gave the advice to took it well. He just said that neither him nor several coworkers interact with him anymore. I asked him if he truly 100% believes that every single thing he did for me as a child was for my benefit. He didn't really say anything. I then finally asked if he has any regrets for how I was treated as a child, and if he thinks he ever did anything wrong. He looked utterly defeated and just mumbled that he could have done more. I could have poked and prodded and could have gone on another rant, but instead I told him this should be goodbye, and I hope he gets the help he needs. I think finally unloading my frustrations was what I needed to finally be able to move on and find peace. I absolutely need to keep on track for therapy and admit that a public whining moment isn't okay, but I should be fine. Even if Opie doesn't hate his father, he surely doesn't respect him, and it's hard to maintain any kind of relationship like that. The fact that not even his son respects him has to be one hell of a wake-up call. It's likely that the dad was telling himself that despite everything he went through, the mother's abuse, he's still a good person, and he still did the right thing by not divorcing her. He's convinced himself that because it's too painful to acknowledge that his choices directly led to the abuse of a child for years. People lie to themselves about stuff all the time to keep themselves going, a kind of self-delusion. While this can help you cope in the short term, it handicaps you and prevents you from accepting your own mistakes and learning from them, becoming a better person and growing emotionally. You see this from cheaters all the time. It was a mistake. It's true love. I found a soulmate. We have a special connection. We were drunk and got carried away. My spouse was happier not knowing. I didn't want to hurt them, etc. Rather than admitting their own flaws, figuring out their own shortcomings that led them to do something so callous to someone they claim to care about, and then taking steps to rectify them. When his own son came out and emphatically said otherwise, other family members and his own mother kicked him out, it had to have made it much harder for him to keep up his delusion. Hopefully this means he'll stay away a bit, and Opie can continue to have a relationship with the rest of his relatives. I don't particularly care what becomes of the father, as with all people who abuse or enable the abuse of children. I just hope he stays away and doesn't do further harm. Opie's well-being is far more important. The father did abuse Opie. Neglect counts. And watching your kid be abused and doing nothing about it counts as neglect. This father sounds emotionally dead. This goes beyond cowardice or passivity. There is something deeply wrong with his emotional stability to be this empty. His white-knuckling through life, just allowing things to happen to him. I was thinking the same. What happened? Honestly, I hate conflicts and confrontations too, and I'm working on my wimpiness. But at least I get angry if only on the inside. I'm so curious about his thought process. Last story. Am I the a-hole for bringing up mother-in-law's finances at a family gathering after she constantly brings up mine? My mother-in-law is constantly making derogatory comments about our finances. We aren't rich, but we aren't broke either, and we have never asked her for money. She has chosen to give us some generous gifts, so really it is none of her business. Every time we are excited about something, new car, a trip, some home renovations, she has to chime in and ask if we can afford it, or if we are sure it is a good use of money. I've also heard through the grapevine that she thinks I'm spoiled. Not sure where she is getting that from. If she was just frugal herself, that might not bother me so much. But mother-in-law lives a very lavish life and doesn't say this nonsense to anyone. Her man-child boyfriend recently went out and bought a Ferrari because he was sad, and she didn't say anything about that. She is a CEO, and I know she makes bank, but still we are not poor. I'm sick of it, and I've asked my husband to talk to her. But truth be told, he is kind of a wuss. We had a family gathering recently, and my mother-in-law pursed her lips when she found out I had upgraded my wedding band, and made a snide comment that it wasn't even 10 years, and implied it was a waste of money. I looked right at her and began asking questions. How much do you have in your bank account? Who pays your bills? Are you splitting the money equal in your will? Because we all know you like your daughter more. What did that bag cost? Mother-in-law was horrified and said I'm tacky for talking about money. I clapped back that she has been talking about my money for years and clearly doesn't like it when the shoe is on the other foot. She rolled her eyes and stormed off. My husband was mortified and said I really went too far and embarrassed him in front of his family. Now for the comments. Lol, I think it was hilarious. Since your husband is mama's boy, somebody needs to be aggressive. Now you're mortified? She's been embarrassing me for years in front of family, and you've done nothing. Shut her down or get ready for more of this. Not a-hole. But really, I hope you're prepared to deal with this for life, because it sounds like your husband is his mother's emotional surrogate, who would still be with her if it weren't for you, and your husband hands his balls to her when she's around. Personally, I prefer to be the only woman with access to my husband's balls, but you do you. They aren't even that close. He's just terrified of her. To be fair, most people are. But she isn't one of those boy moms. Why is he terrified of his mom? Regardless, tell him that the only way for him to no longer be terrified of her is to stand up to her. She's probably waiting for him to do that anyway. It's very freeing. Everyone's terrified of her. She's ruthless and cutthroat in business and doesn't know how to turn it off when she gets home. He grew up watching everyone in the family buckle to her demands, mostly because they wanted her to pay for stuff. It's sad he doesn't get she doesn't respect any of them because they let her act this way. Exactly. Your husband and you don't sound like you need her money. So if your husband wants her respect, he has to stop cowering before her. You did it, so he can too. Besides, she's a huge hypocrite who seems to have major look at. Am I the a-hole for being surly, rude, and mean at a wedding and leaving early? Plus updates. Original post. I was asked to be a member of the wedding party. Despite this, I was the only person, not only the wedding party, but also at the ceremony, who wasn't allowed to have a +1. This was an outdoor wedding with limited seating, and these people don't give a crap about COVID, so it wasn't about that. I was told it was because my relationship wasn't serious enough despite us being together for a year, that only engaged or married couples were invited, and that they didn't want some random guy in their wedding pictures who I might not even be with later in the future. They don't want to have to look at some random guy in their pictures even though he wouldn't have been in any of the post pictures at all. Maybe just in the background of crowd shots. There have been zero conflicts between them and my boyfriend. And he's a nice and mild-mannered guy who gets along with everyone, so I don't think it was about him personally. I get to the ceremony and find out that literally everyone else has +1. Not just married couples, but there are couples there who have been dating for less time than me. This is when I started feeling surly. I smiled and played my part during the ceremony, but inside I was very surly and angry. We then got to the reception, which had way more people than the ceremony. This is where all the more distant friends were invited, and everyone there had +1. I was literally placed at a table as the one single person, and everyone else at the table was a couple. Some at the table were other members of the wedding party, but others were random distant acquaintances. People started asking me where my boyfriend was, and I said I was told he wasn't invited. They asked why, and I said I had no idea why. This is when I started letting my surliness show and started acting rude and mean because I was humiliated. And then I was brought into conversation with the couple's male friend Dean. I was previously told that Dean has a crush on me, and I made it clear I wouldn't be interested even if I were single. Even after that, he kept trying to message me and I ignored him. But now the people who brought me into conversation with Dean were like standing around staring at us and giggling behind their hands, like they thought they were Cupid matchmakers. Dean was absolutely a participant in this. I was meaner to Dean than I've ever been to anyone in my entire life. I was as fully rude as I've ever wanted to be when being the target of someone's romantic interest unwantedly. It's true I don't really know if I was being set up, but I was already furious before that happened. Everyone was silent and awkward. I went back and finished my meal, and as soon as I was done, picked up my purse and left and went straight to my boyfriend's house, skipping most of the reception, cake cutting, speeches, and everything. I'm now being told by the couple that they're hurt and confused why I left so early. I haven't replied. Edit. I don't want to describe the conversation because people would probably think really badly of me if they saw how horrible I really acted. But screw it. This was toward the end of the meal and some people are still eating and some people are just partying, standing and talking, circulating around the room. I was eating and someone comes over to me goes, "Hey, could you come over here for a second? Someone has a question for you." Already I was suspicious because that was a scenario straight out of the second grade lunchroom. But fine, whatever, maybe it has to do with my bridal party stuff. So I come over and who is standing there but Dean, looking really smug, and a few other people are standing there who are already giggling. So I already start feeling angry. Because again, this is reminding me of the second grade lunchroom scenario, and I'm already imagining how it's going to go. He actually started out with, "Hey beautiful," and I went, "What do you want?" in an angry tone. I think he sensed that this wasn't going to go like what he had in his mind, but he continued what he obviously planned out. So he said, "I just wanted to ask you something," and I said, "What?" He went, "There is something wrong with my phone. Can you help me fix it?" I said, "I don't know anything about phones. Sorry, can't help you," and turned around to go back. And he went, No. What's wrong with my phone is that it doesn't have your number in it." And I just went off, because I already made it clear I was not into whatever this was, and I already turned to leave. But he interrupted me leaving and kept going despite it all. I was furious because I was already angry, plus he wasn't paying attention to how I felt or caring about it. So I felt like he deserved what I was going to give to him. I raised my voice and said, "Dean, F off and leave me alone. No, you can't have my freaking number. No, I don't want to go out with you. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not attracted to you. I don't want anything to do with you. You are not interesting or attractive to me at all. I want you to leave me the heck alone." He was looking down during all of this and not at me. And I said, "I want you to look at me and agree you're going to leave me alone from now on. Yes or no?" And he said yes, and I said, "Look at me and say yes." So he did. So I turned around and left him alone after that. I know I humiliated him and I did it on purpose. I had to admit that, but it's true. Even though I raised my voice, it was loud in the room, so only the people standing nearby and one unrelated table nearby heard it. Now for the top comments before reading the little update. Wow. There are layers to this like a freaking parfait made entirely of dog crap in different stages of decomposition, and it just kept getting worse. From the title, I thought you were the a-hole. Then it was like, okay, maybe it's everyone sucks here. Then it got to not the a-hole and kept on trucking into how the newlyweds and Dean are huge a-holes and just kept on going. Honestly, you are absolutely not the a-hole, and in fact should be commended and not engaging in some fully warranted a-hole behavior of your own. Because I absolutely do not consider rudely rejecting Dean's advances to be a-hole behavior when he is complicit in his setup attempt from hell. I think at the very least you would have been completely justified in not only leaving early, but taking your wedding gift with you because these people are not your friends. I'm still so angry about the entire thing. I wish I had told them to go screw themselves the minute they called my boyfriend some guy might not even be with in the future. My relationship is one of the most important things in my life, and my boyfriend is precious to me. You need to cut them out immediately. They have already proven they don't care about your feelings by ignoring the fact you previously said you do not want to date this dude. If he contacts you again, get a restraining order because this is some next-level diabolical manipulation, and I'd GTFO this environment ASAP. Which I would find absolutely hilarious, considering they don't want some random guy in their photos when they look at them later in life, but now have to look back at photos with some random girl they're not friends with anymore. LMAO. Not stay home. If you were seriously singled out like that as the only major exception by someone, either the wedding couple or anyone in the wedding party, I probably would have been more angry. Honestly, I was the most mad about how they disrespected my boyfriend in the relationship, calling him some random guy and saying I might not be with him in the future. Like, what the heck kind of way is that to talk about my relationship that's extremely important to me? Not stay home. You were treated blatantly and fairly, and it appears that there was an ulterior motive. You'd be justified if you want no contact with everybody involved in this fiasco. Now for the update. Alright, after making this post, I emailed them back, and I started small just to see what they would say. All I said to start it off was, I was uncomfortable because I was the only one without a +1 after being told nobody but engaged or married couples would have them. Multiple people at the reception started repeatedly asking me where my boyfriend was, and I was getting more and more humiliated, especially since I was seated with 2 colleagues and their Tinder boyfriends. It was humiliating to be the only one singled out, and I was extremely upset. Here's the reply I quickly got, which just meant no +1s for the ceremony. It was perfectly fine for you to bring your boyfriend to the reception, and that's what we assumed you were going to do. That's what we always planned for. The reception being much larger and looser. We never heard from you about bringing your boyfriend to the reception, so we didn't plan for it, but it always would have been fine. This reply is some BS. That was never, ever said to me at all or presented as an option. I would have actually been fine with that as a compromise. Yes, this is a toilet paper answer. She's just trying to cover her butt. Was there an empty seat next to you? Nope. What kind of wedding doesn't account for everyone at the ceremony and the reception? She's been caught out and is lying. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. You're right, it's BS. Call it out. If that is the case, why was this option not brought up when I asked in person why I could not bring boyfriend? If you expected him, why did you not inquire as to why he did not RSVP? Why didn't you ask me what his meal choice was? You know very well you went out of your way to make sure he did not attend a reception with me, and you scrambling to come up with excuses at this point is incredibly weak. Even with all of that, I would have and plan to let it go if groom's friends, Dean and Sneakers, person that brought you to the table, hadn't planned out a scheme to humiliate me in front of their entire table as a way of forcing me into accepting a date with a drunk and exceptionally creepy Dean. Even as I tried to politely walk away, he continued shouting pickup lines at me until I'd had enough. I don't know anyone else's names, but be sure to call them out specifically for their compliance. It is gaslighting, right? That is not the reply I expected, and it made me second-guess myself. Like, wait, did they say something about bringing him to the reception? But no, they didn't. If they were expecting you to bring him to the reception, there would have been a seat for him and presumably would have needed food preferences. Yeah, it seems like they were sort of framing it as blaming me, saying that they expected him to come at first, but because they never heard anything from me, they didn't go ahead and plan for him. Now for the last story. Update. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to pay for professional hair, makeup, new shoes, and stay in an expensive Airbnb for my friend's out-of-town wedding? Original post. Hi all. My 28 female friend, 30 female, let's call her Brooke, is getting married to her long-distance boyfriend, 28 male, for 6 months. For background, I live in a city about a 16-hour drive away from where Brooke lives. However, the groom also lives in a different city from both myself and the bride, somewhere in between both of us. She will be getting married on her groom's farm in a different state about 6 hours away from me. A couple of days later, All hell breaks loose when Brooke's first list of requirements emerge in a group chat. 1. Makeup and hair must be professionally done and paid for by bridesmaid. $200 for both. 2. We must purchase nude flats and we may not wear heels. Around $30 to $50. As she is worried she and her groom will look shorter than us. 3. We must wear the jewelry of her choice. To be fair to her, she said this would be a barred gift to us once she decides what look she is going for. 4. Nails must be bare or in the mauve color she has selected for her dress. 5. The dress must be from the local boutique. 16 hours drive or a 3-hour plane flight away from me. It must be floor length with straps. The boutique doesn't ship, but my sister is picking it up, trying it on, and sending pictures. I texted her explaining I'm traveling for the wedding and I'm happy to pay the accommodation, airfare, and for the dress. But that if she was requiring professional makeup and specific non-heeled shoes, that she should pay for the extra things she wants. I explained that I am happy to pay for the usual things, but that my budget wouldn't allow for professional hair and makeup and new shoes. She said she would speak to her groom about allowing me to stay on the farm property, but that the makeup was non-negotiable. Fast forward again today. Brooke texts me and says she will have to renege on the offer she made to me to let me stay in the farmhouse on the night after the wedding. She reserved an Airbnb in the city, $200 a night, for the wedding party. However, she says she will only be paying for the night prior to the wedding. Brooke tells me that she thinks I should stay in the Airbnb she booked, since there is a 2-night minimum and she would like the money back. I politely declined and said I would try to find accommodations in the city for the night after the wedding, since there are some reasonable places to stay. I asked if there would be anyone to transport me back to the city since no cabs or public transportation will go there. Brooke says she will not arrange transportation for me unless I stay in the $200 Airbnb and pay her back for the cost of it. She said I may bring a tent or have to figure it out myself. I'm more than willing to pay for the dress, transportation, etc. The cost of being in her wedding right now is $1,256, including all travel expenses, dress, and extras she's asked for. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Are you absolutely sure even going is worth it? I'm leaning really hard towards noping right out of this whole bizarre event. Not the a-hole. And all of this for a 6-month-old relationship. Brides have some of the most extreme cases of delusion/entitlement I've ever seen. Long distance at that. Not the a-hole. As someone planning a wedding myself, I would never demand my bridesmaid spend this much on something this specific. She should be footing that bill. I wouldn't bother going to a wedding where I'd have to spend $1,300 just for the wedding. I asked my girls to buy a navy dress on Amazon for $35 and show up. They looked beautiful, and I was giving them gifts. I don't understand the entitlement. I hope Opie knows she's not the a-hole, and I hope she doesn't waste her time and money to fulfill her friend's Instagram photo wishes. This is super considerate. I know the dress and looking presentable is part of it, so that makes sense to me. But it seems so focused on what I look like and how much I'm spending, and not at all in just being there to support her for her big day and having a good time. I do want to see her get married, but it seems like she wants me there for the Insta and that sweet, sweet purple aesthetic. Not stay home. You can't afford what you can afford and have been very upfront. Off topic, but long-distance fiancé of 6 months and groom's farm? Please let this be an example of people who met in farmersonly.com. Haha, I wish. They did meet online, but not Farmers Only. Let's just say this may be a scene out of Deliverance. It's bring your own bottle and cake will only be served to the groom and bride since it's too expensive. And now for the update. Hi again. Since one user said they would summon an internet ghost to hunt me if I was a bridesmaid in this wedding, here's an unsolicited update. After taking a day or two to think it through, I texted my friend and explained to her the following. Summarized. I think she's a great friend and we have a lot of great memories together. I was excited to make a new one on her big day. That being said, I couldn't afford the expenses she required, such as professional hair, makeup, specific shoes, and a chosen Airbnb. I explained that the $200 it would cost to attend is over my budget, and I simply could not afford the things she is asking for. I don't want to put her in a position where she would be compromising on things she wanted to accommodate my budget. So the best thing for me to do was to bow out of being a bridesmaid right now, so she can have ample time to find a replacement. I also explained that I had some concerns with how I was going to get off the farm after the night of the wedding, since she said she would only offer transport if I stayed in the shared $200 Airbnb. She was unsure who else would be staying there. I said I have to be in court for a trial 2 days after the wedding, and while I'm usually very flexible, I couldn't leave that part to chance since my career is important to me. Brooke responded with the following, summarized. She has been very busy planning her move, doing report cards, she's a teacher, and planning the wedding. She felt that since I'm a lawyer, I should be able to afford everything she's asking for. For reference, I'm a very new government lawyer and have massive student debt. And says she deserves a bridesmaid who will meet her expectations and be able to support her. I am not sure how to respond to her, or if I will, but I do think I dodged a bullet. Or at least a trip to Crazy Town. Thank you so much to all of you who convinced me to not attend this disaster. You have saved me $1,200 and 6 months of horror. Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to continue providing free childcare for my stepdaughter? Original post. I did a work program with the local clerk of court's office when I was in high school. They hired me when I graduated, and I had my 30 service years before I turned 50. With 30 service years, you can get your full pension at any age. I worked until my first grandchild was born. Then I retired to be grandma daycare. I have 5 grandchildren, an 8-year-old male for my stepson, a 7-year-old male for my son, a 5-year-old female, and an 18-month-old male for my daughter. I babysat all of them with no issues or complaints. I still keep the 18-month-old Monday through Friday and the older ones during the summer and school holidays. My stepdaughter and her boyfriend have been non-stop dramas since before the baby was born. When she was 10 weeks pregnant, they presented a 3-page list of rules for when I was babysitting. They said if I didn't sign it, they wouldn't allow me to babysit. I said I understood their need to do what was best for their baby and assured them there would be no hurt feelings on my end if they made other childcare arrangements. Some of the rules were almost understandable, but most were downright ridiculous, and none of it was going to work for me. I don't remember them all, but some examples are: I can't take the baby anywhere without their permission. I can't watch more than one additional child while babysitting. I can't cook. I had to provide the full name, DOB, and address of any potential visitors ahead of time for their approval. They had to know anytime I had a guest over, who it was and how long they stayed. My 9-year-old cat would have to be kept out of rooms where the baby would be, even when the baby wasn't there. I couldn't get another pet without their agreement. When she was 7 months along, they came back with revised rules in an attempt to compromise. Again, I let them know their expectations were not going to fit with my life, and that they should find other childcare. 2 days after my stepdaughter went back to work, she called and asked if I could keep Cullen the next day. I agreed, but made it clear that I was going to provide safe, appropriate care according to my judgment, and I wouldn't tolerate complaints about violating the rules. My stepdaughter was okay during pickup and drop-off, but I felt like she was interrogating me every time she picked him up. It was tolerable, but her boyfriend was downright rude. By Sunday, I would dread the start of the week because of dealing with both of them, especially his behavior. At minimum, he would pick up Cullen, partially undress him, make at least one snide comment about my cat, or complain if I had any other grandchildren over, or if I had cooked. Then he'd say things like, "I guess we don't have any choice but to put up with this for now," or "I guess you're happy that you won." This went on for 4 months. I spoke to my stepdaughter several times, telling her that they seemed unhappy with my care and should find another solution. I also told her that her boyfriend needed to stop being so vocal. Things would improve for a day or two, but then he'd start again. It all came to a head as Thanksgiving approached. He was very vocal about not wanting me to keep all my grandchildren over the break. I made it clear that I would have all of them on certain days, and that they needed to make other arrangements if they had a problem. They didn't make other arrangements, and when he picked Cullen up on the first day, I had all the grandchildren, and he was very rude. Although nothing happened, everyone was happy, clean, and fed. He said to Cullen, "I'm sorry, we have no choice but to leave you in an unsafe situation to be neglected." I called my stepdaughter that night, relayed what was said, and told her she had 2 weeks to make other arrangements. I also told her she needed to drop off and pick up Cullen during that time. If her boyfriend came to drop him off, I would refuse to keep him, and if he came to pick him up, I wouldn't watch him again. Things improved with her doing drop-offs and pickups. At some point, she asked if I could keep Cullen until January because they had found someone, but he couldn't start until then. I agreed. On New Year's Day, several people sent me a screenshot of a post her boyfriend made on social media about how thankful he was that they were finally able to leave Cullen without worrying about his safety or neglect. He didn't outright name me, but anyone who knows us would know the post implied plenty. I was just happy it was over. Friday, she called me saying their new childcare provider told her Cullen wasn't a good fit and couldn't return Monday. She asked if I would start keeping him again. I told her I was sorry for their situation but didn't feel comfortable watching him. My husband and stepson both think I should watch Cullen, under the agreement that Amanda drop him off and pick him up, as they believe her boyfriend is the real problem. My stepson also commented that I'd probably be more willing to let it go if it had been a conflict with my daughter's husband. My pension is about $4,000 a month, plus continuation of my health insurance, which is about 40% of our take-home income if that matters. Am I the a-hole for refusing to start watching Cullen again? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. No, you shouldn't put yourself through this for Cullen's sake. Cullen will get cared for regardless. There's no need for you to set yourself on fire because your stepdaughter and her boyfriend can't behave like normal human beings. Your husband and stepson are welcome to offer free childcare and put up with this treatment if it's important to them. But you've done your time. Learn from that experience and don't let yourself be put in the same situation again. There's a reason the licensed daycare won't keep him. It's the boyfriend. The liability alone would make me pause. He could ruin your lives. Especially after that Facebook post. No way. Yeah, boyfriend could call CPS because of the cat or some other crazy idea. Stay away from these people. Baby daddy has a real problem. That's very controlling behavior there. He also may have a distorted view of you if your stepdaughter has complained about her evil stepmother before the baby. Until she needed you, that is. Not the a-hole. I read that gaslighting runs deep in that crowd. You are so good with boundaries. Now they're slandered your name, called you unsafe and unfit until they need you again. If your husband and stepson want to help them, they should. I'm guessing the example of your daughter/sister-in-law doesn't include public shaming on Facebook. Those demands are nonsense and pretty funny considering they can't figure out their own lives but want to run your retirement. Good luck, because God forbid that baby gets mobile and bumps their head or some other minor issue comes up. Yeah, that couple is better off being someone else's headache than this sweet lady. Now for the update. First, let me address the common suggestion that Amanda's boyfriend is purposely sabotaging their childcare to trap her at home. They make roughly the same amount of money and definitely can't afford to lose half their income. I seriously doubt he wants her to stay home. Second, I would never tell my stepson to find someone else to watch his child because of a simple difference of opinion. My grandson and I have a very close bond. He's the oldest, and it would break both my heart and his if he didn't come spend his holidays and summers with me. Plus, he's a huge help with the little ones when I have them all, and things get hectic. I would never be so petty as to make him, and all my other grandchildren, suffer because of an adult disagreement. So, I sort of asked around about why they were dropped by their new sitter so quickly. Apparently, they weren't. Amanda picked Cullen up and dropped him off both days he went, and everything was lovely. He did cry quite a bit, but they expected that to improve as he adjusted to not being held as much. My husband and stepson talked to Amanda, and she said they realized they can't afford daycare. They already made the easy changes. packing a lunch, giving up fancy coffee, etc. And his dad and her mom are both giving them about $100 a month towards childcare. They can barely afford it, but they didn't realize that they've had to send everything the baby needs. I buy diapers, wipes, formula, bottles, extra clothes, etc. They just hand me the baby. They didn't realize daycare doesn't cover all that. Also, imagine her boyfriend's surprise when he found out what the staffing ratios are in this very expensive daycare. One adult cares for 5 infants. I guess he thought someone would provide one-on-one care, along with diapers, wipes, and formula for $350 a week? My stepson relayed their almost apology. They felt overwhelmed by an infant and couldn't imagine that someone else could manage that plus other things. Colin is going back to daycare tomorrow. Colin's dad is selling his dirt bike, and Amanda is selling some designer clothes, handbags, and shoes to cover the cost. It'll get easier for them in 6 months when he transfers to the 1-year-old class, which is a little cheaper. I love how Amanda's boyfriend was shocked to find out that daycare isn't a magical babysitting fairyland. Newsflash, diapers don't grow on trees, buddy. Wonder if he is ever going to apologize for being an absolute idiot. What a moron. No, he'll likely get Amanda pregnant again inside a year because he literally cannot connect cause and effect, and neither can Amanda. It's actually insane to think about how he went public with accusations of child neglect against you, yet he didn't know the first thing about what his child would actually need in daycare because you had it covered. Also, the almost apologies will never be enough until your stepdaughter's partner publicly retracts and apologizes properly for his earlier libel. I would push back against her stepson a bit, not in terms of changing anything with childcare, but simply ask him why he thought it was appropriate to ask you to work for free for someone who publicly slandered you. You deserve a proper apology from both your husband and stepson as well. It's funny that he accused her of neglect just because she had her other grandkids over. Then he takes the baby to daycare only to find out the daycare worker also takes care of 4 other babies at once. It sounds like most days, OP only had a baby and the 18-month-old, since the other kids were in school and were only there during school breaks. So for free, the stepdaughter and boyfriend's baby was actually getting more attention. Probably even with the other kids there because they're older and don't need as much as babies. Now they have the pleasure of paying someone who watches 5 babies every day at once, and they have to provide diapers, formula, and whatever else the baby needs. It serves them right to have to sell their stuff to afford daycare. Maybe it will teach them not to bite the hand that feeds them, or not to look a gift horse in the mouth. Whichever one fits better. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband I don't care if he can't raise his son? I've been with my husband for a few years now. We've had good and bad days, but as a couple, you overcome them, right? Lately, we've been butting heads a lot, way more than we used to. I'm 28 female and my spouse is 32 male. It's gotten to the point where we've been sleeping in different rooms. Of course, I noticed the lack of communication, so I suggested we go to couples counseling, but he refused. I went by myself to work on my issues. I tried suggesting counseling a second time, and he got really angry, so I let it go. He has a son 7 from his previous relationship. I don't have kids with him, but we've been raising his son together since his mother isn't in his life. There were days when he wouldn't come home for days at a time. By then, I kind of knew something was up, and my heart raced as I got closer to the truth. As they say, the truth hurts. I remember one day when I was lecturing my stepson because he spilled glue on the carpet. I didn't even know my husband had come home until he came into his son's room, screaming at me. He told me I had no right to lecture his son because I wasn't his mother. He did this all in front of his son, who looked scared. It felt like a slap in the face because I've been there since his son was 2, and to know that this is the treatment I'm getting? I don't know what set him off that day. I should have known from his behavior. I found out he was cheating on me with one of the women he claimed was his best friend. I couldn't move on when I discovered their text messages, meetups, and dates. I was already stressed out and completely done with everything. When he got home, I told him I knew everything, so he shouldn't try to deny it. Still, he tried to come up with excuses. I just stood there and let him babble. He started crying, saying he couldn't raise his son without me. I told him I didn't care if he couldn't raise his son without me. I can't say he wasn't shocked. At that moment, I'm at my mom's house, planning my next move. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Don't go back. He does not see you as a mother. He sees you as a babysitter for when he's out cheating. Your marriage is over. You're not the a-hole. His behavior is inexcusable. He's cheating, abusive, and disrespectful. His claim that he can't raise his son without you is manipulative. You are not a babysitter. You're his partner. Don't let him guilt you into staying. This relationship is toxic. Leaving is the best thing for you. Focus on your well-being. You deserve a partner who values and respects you. Don't go back. We do raise his son together since his mother isn't in his life. He told me I had no right to lecture him when I was not his mother. Sounds like cheater boy expected that by marrying you, he acquired an unpaid nanny because he damn sure is not treating you like a wife. Let his current F-buddy be his new child care solution and leave his mess behind you. Sad for the kid, but oh well, he said himself that you're not a kid's mother. See ya. Exactly this. It's heartbreaking for the kid, but you can't build a stable home with someone who treats you like a convenience. Hopefully, OP's next move gives her the peace she deserves. I'm so happy to hear you left. You've put yourself first here. Keep it up and stay away from that man permanently. Get a divorce and get free of him, not the a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad I'm not moving state with him and his family? My parents got divorced when I, 15 male, was 7, and my dad got married again 3 years ago. His wife has 2 little kids with her ex. He visits them twice a year, sometimes even less. At my dad's house, I've always had to take care of myself. And when his wife's kids came into the house, I was expected to babysit and make sure they were taken care of too. It's 3 hours, Monday to Friday, when I'm at my dad's. My mom hated it for me as much as I hated it, but it wasn't something my dad would ever stop, even when she talked to him about it. A judge didn't care when my mom told the courts about it because siblings babysitting isn't the worst thing ever. I don't think that's fair, because they're not even my siblings. And they weren't my step-siblings when it first started. But I guess it doesn't matter. The kids got super attached to me. Dad argued with my mom a lot because she wouldn't make me go over to his house on her time to babysit for those 3 hours. He thought it was crappy of her to get in the way of my time with the kids, and he didn't care if I didn't want to. When my dad and his wife decided to move states, they wanted me to come. The judge said no because he'd be taking me away from my mom, and I've lived here my whole life. However, the judge said that if I wanted to go, it would be approved, and my mom couldn't stop it. But I don't want to go, and I've told him that repeatedly. He told me I should think more about it and said I'm part of a bigger family, and that he'd miss me, and his stepkids would miss me too. Even when he was saying that, it was so obvious he'd also missed the babysitting I do for them. He told me to think about the long term and the good things the move would make possible. For example, they're moving close to a really good school, which my dad tried to use as a reason to get my mom to agree to make me go. But my mom doesn't want to only see me every few months. Now my dad's throwing a fit because I've said I won't move and they're leaving in a couple of weeks. I'm still not going. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Free babysitting is done, Dad. Have fun actually paying someone to take care of the kids. Yep, I'm so happy it's done in 2 weeks. Exactly, the free ride is over. Let's see how fast he realizes just how much he's been leaning on you to keep things running smoothly. It's not your job to step up where Dad refuses to take responsibility. Maybe paying for actual childcare will give him a reality check. Don't go anywhere. Stop babysitting, oh my god. I don't get to stop it. My dad made it one of my chores. But once he moves, I won't have to anymore. Actually, tell the judge you aren't being paid to babysit. Bet that puts a stop to it. According to federal guidelines, you aren't allowed to work for free. Babysitting is a job, not a chore. Tell your mom if you aren't being paid, you don't want to babysit. The judge knew, but didn't see a problem because Dad treated it like a chore I had to do, and the judge said that's normal.
Update. Am I the a-hole for being upset that my husband used my bonus on him? Original story. History. My husband, 28 male, and I, 27 female, have been married about 4 years now. We dated in college and got married after. He finished college with a finance degree and thought he would go into accounting. Well, he quickly found out that was not his passion. So he bounced around jobs and ideas, business, teacher, lawyer, but nothing really kept him saying, "This is what I want to do." This was pre-COVID. Since COVID, he has attempted anything. He says after the pandemic there will be a boom in jobs and he can find something that he's passionate about. I have been working full-time and thankfully my job became remote and pays the bills while keeping food on the table. Incident in question. After the fiscal year closed, my work had done really well. We're selling medical testing equipment, so it was a big product of 2020. I was given a promotion. I got a little pay raise and a small bonus. I was really excited because I could finally repair my purse and replace my shoes. My friend's puppy destroyed, but I acknowledge I should not have left my purse on a low stool in front of the puppy's bed. So, my fault. I was so excited to tell my husband, but he seemed more excited than me over this promotion. He started going off about how he could redo his game area and get the new system since he was tired of his others. And I was dumbfounded. I got really quiet because I almost could not believe what he was saying. He eventually goes out and gets himself a new system, chair, and mouse. He had basically spent my bonus. I was so upset and ultimately hurt and numb. We ended up getting into an argument, and he called me selfish for not being happy that he got to achieve his dream, and I am spoiled for being upset I couldn't spend this money on myself first. I basically called him an ungrateful a-hole and asked why does he deserve new stuff when I have been providing. He got really quiet on that one and stormed out saying he would be staying with his family, only about an hour away. I have been getting angry calls and texts due to the fact he didn't feel supported in his own home. And if I'm making the money, I can get whatever I want when I want. And I shouldn't throw it in his face that he doesn't have an income, which is not true. I'm trying to keep a roof over our head and food on the table. All his friends and family think I way overreacted to something that makes my husband happy. And that the next time we get a large sum of money, my husband said he would let me repair my purse. I haven't responded and don't think I will for a few days. But I have gotten so many "you're such a witch" and the a-hole, I'm starting to wonder if I really am. Summary. Husband is bored with his game system stuff, so he used my bonus and raced to buy him a new one without my permission. And when I got upset, I was labeled selfish and unsupportive. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Also, as someone who's been in a relationship with this type of person, lawyers can be found on Google. Thank you for your input. I was hoping it wouldn't reach there, but after this, I'm not sure. I would separate your checking account, although that would send him flying. I doubt that your husband will ever change. Not the a-hole. He is selfish and entitled. I would start separating your finances to protect your future self. Not saying you will split or should split, but this is reckless. I was hoping to not have to go there because I believe a marriage was a union between two people, and that they shouldn't have anything entitled to them. But after thousands disappeared, I'm starting to wonder what this union means to him. I was assuming hundreds. Thousands? That is absolutely unacceptable. Start a personal savings account with direct deposit now. Sort the details later. Not the a-hole and is trying to manipulate you into feeling bad, rather than taking responsibility for his terrible actions. You clean the house and make the money. What does he bring to your relationship? What is done is unacceptable, childish, and selfish. I'd return his new toys and tell him to stay at his parents until he gets a clue about adult life. I'm not saying divorce him, but do not let this slide even an inch. Don't give in into his gaslighting. You are right. There is no argument in the world that he can make to justify his behavior. Thank you for this. I felt so hurt that he could spend it like nothing, and then I am supposed to be the bad guy. I think this is the first time where I felt my partner isn't my partner. Edit/update. Wow, thank you everyone. I was not expecting this kind of support. I appreciate all the kind messages and compassion. This is more than I have ever felt in my life, so thank you Reddit. I took the weekend to reflect on what I want and read through the comments and messages. I see your point, and that I can't keep treating this like a marriage if he doesn't. So here's to today and my first step towards freedom. I am separating the finances immediately and contacting a local lawyer to see my options and rights, as well as therapy options for him. I will present this to him and he gets to choose. But I refuse to baby an almost 30-year-old. If he wants that, well, he has his mother. Thank you, everyone. I will try and update in the future. And now for the update. I first want to thank everyone who reached out and snapped me out of these days with my soon-to-be ex. He was extremely toxic and just made me feel not even worth anything. This is probably why it was so hard to see, wasn't it? So I want to thank everyone who offered words of encouragement and even a tough love. I needed to hear it. After he went back to his parents, he was waiting for my apology, which I never did, and when he noticed I drained our joint bank, he escalated saying I was his, and how I could never actually leave him, and that he owed me. All of my success was his, and without him I would be a loser dropout. His family was even worse, because I had already blocked them, so they started making fake accounts and using apps to hide their number to harass me, saying I ruined their son's life, and how he sacrificed everything to get me where I am. To throw him to the side like this was disgusting and I deserved a rod. I provided all this to my lawyer, who recommended to take a restraining order in case he wanted to escalate further, and to not engage ever, but just keep the records. This has caused my anxiety to go through the roof, and I am working on this with my therapist. I have separated the finances completely and changed my banks. Even told them my soon-to-be ex is never allowed to access these accounts because he would take it all and run. I have changed my number and gone completely social media-less. Besides this, part of me is broken that our marriage came to end over a computer. I keep thinking I'm stupid, and how I couldn't see the warning signs. I must look like a fool to everyone. All in all, I'm slowly picking up the pieces of my life and figuring out how to move forward. Thank you to anyone still reading this, and thank you everyone who helped me get here. Summary: I am officially filing for divorce after I never apologized to him, which only made my soon-to-be ex-husband and his family started harassing me to the nth degree. I was having a panic attack every time the phone rang, so I had to change my number and delete my social media. I am gaining my freedom from my toxic partner and his family. Your marriage didn't come to an end because of a computer. It came to an end because of your significant other. That just happened to be the final straw that opened your eyes to the reality of your relationship. I know this hurts, but it will get better. I tried to remember this. It didn't end because of one event. But of course I got put on blast for divorcing over a computer and get labeled immature. It hurts, but I know I can't listen to them or I will forever be a cash cow to my ex. Tell them your ex said all that crap about owning you, and you being a loser who wouldn't make it without him. If they get back on your side, they're worth keeping around. If not, take out the trash while you're getting rid of the dumpster fire that is your ex. A few friends were on my side, but I lost the majority. They keep saying how I am selfish, and how I would be okay because I have the job. Marriage is for better or for worse, not just something convenient. How would I feel if my husband was making money, and I bought something to make me feel better because I was depressed, and my husband divorced me? So I dropped trying to plead my case. They can have him at his family. For worse means things like illness or financial strife, not one person being selfish to the detriment of the other. It's a partnership, and he wasn't acting like a partner. I want to address this specifically. I must look like a fool to everyone. You absolutely do not. You look like someone who managed to find the courage to do something extremely difficult. Abusive relationships, and make no mistake, this was mistreatment. Financial abuse is a real thing, as is emotional abuse, are incredibly hard to escape from. Relationships require emotional investment, and even in a bad relationship, it's natural to think, I've put so much of myself into this relationship, so I need to try to fix it. Abusers know this, and will do everything they can to undermine your self-confidence, so that fixing an unfixable relationship seems more feasible than leaving it. I was so very proud that you were able to push past the manipulation, both from him and his family, and escape from that toxic relationship. And the fact that you're taking this seriously enough to involve a lawyer is great news, because it shows that you're not going to fall into the trap of, let's try to fix this one more time. So no, you don't look like a fool. You look like a woman who has finally realized her worth as a person. And unlike a bonus from work, your soon-to-be ex-husband can't take that away from you. This made me tear up. Thank you for these words. I really had no self-value or worth coming into this. Even in therapy, I broke down, saying I had failed my marriage and I was getting a divorce because I am unhappy. I now see this thinking is due to the emotional mistreatment from my ex. I never felt good enough and like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. I am thankful he took the steps to get a lawyer because we have been able to document all the verbal harassment from his family. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for transferring shared funds to a personal account? Some background story. I, 35 male, and my wife, 33 female, live together in a medium-sized apartment. She works as a teacher, whereas I work as a pharmacologist for a major biotech company. This means there is a very large pay gap between us. So we both share an account so that we can both pay for necessities and other things. Recently, though, I've noticed a lot of strange activity in the account. She has been withdrawing and depositing large amounts of money recently, like thousands of dollars large. I went to confront her about it. And as it turns out, she has been doing some very risky trading in the stock market. I was not pleased with this, and I felt betrayed that she would gamble our money like that. She just said that I needed to trust her and pointed out that in the past week, around when it started, she has increased the account's value by about 10%. In the end, it devolved into a screaming match and no progress was made. After a lot of thinking, I decided that I would protect my share of the money, since I believe there is a high likelihood that she will start chasing losses and lose all of the money in the account. So I transferred my contribution, about 65%, to a personal account and started cashing my checks to that account. Well, as soon as she found out, she was livid. She said that it was unfair for me to only leave her with 35% of our income since we were married, and she would not be able to adjust to such a salary cut. She wants me to transfer everything back to the communal account immediately, and has stopped talking to me. It was never my intent to hinder her quality of life, and I'm debating transferring her some of the money so it would be split 50-50, but I really want to protect my contribution to the account from her reckless trading. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You should have 3 accounts. Yours, hers, and joint. Have all bills get paid from the joint account. Then you can protect your money. She's free to spend her money and invest. Agreed. This is how my husband and I handle it. I have a spreadsheet that breaks down bills and how much we both make. Then we contribute to the joint account based on those numbers. For example, say bills are $1,000 total a month. Say I make 40% of our total income and my husband makes 60%. I will put $400 in the joint and he does $600. Anything outside of that is for us to do with as we will. It works well for us and we have shared it with a few couples who've argued over finances in the past and it's worked for them as well. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She's happy to see your money go into some investing company's account, so why would she care so much when it goes into yours? Because then she doesn't reap the benefits. He does. Just like if there is a loss, he takes a hit on the loss as well. I need to be clear, I don't mind her using shared money for this. If she talks about and discusses it first, since it was joint money. Not the a-hole. Though I feel you could consider a different approach. Just a suggestion. Your wife is dealing in stocks. Sometimes some people have a knack for it. Sometimes people become very much involved. Read a lot in different companies before buying/selling stocks. Your wife is trying something new. How about you both set a budget for your wife to invest in stocks? You both can also decide on a timeline. Example, she gets 6 months, and if you both realize that it is going in losses, give it up. There's a few things here. First, we don't know if she's trading stocks, because OP didn't say. She could just as easily be trading options, cryptocurrency or forex. If it's one of those 3 options, she's putting their money at major risk. Trading legitimately is one of those things that it doesn't matter how skilled or knowledgeable a trader is. They can still lose massive, and I mean massive amounts of money. Even the professionals and retail traders that do profit Take $1 million plus losses at times. The market is unpredictable, especially in times like this. Well, over 95% of traders lose money trading every year. If she was actually being safe with just stock trading, she would have that money in an index account with solid returns. I highly doubt that's what she's doing from the post. Don't believe me? My boyfriend does this stuff, and I hate it. He's probably lost 30,000 plus this past year alone in options, crypto, and forex. One of his losses was 18,000 in one trade. This stuff really isn't a joke. OP needs to protect himself now, and he needs to do it fast. Not the a-hole. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for going on a camping trip instead of staying home with my pregnant wife? I know the title might sound bad, but the story is that 12 years ago, myself, 32 male, my younger brother and our two close friends started a tradition that every year we go on a camping trip together. We weren't able to the past 2 years because my wife, 29 female, and I had our first child in 2019. And last year, obviously wasn't a great time to be taking trips. So this year, me and my brother and our friends agreed on going camping. I told my wife, who is currently 25 weeks pregnant, about it 3 weeks before, and she wasn't happy. She said I can't just leave her alone while she's pregnant. She said that she's anxious because our daughter was born premature at 27 weeks, and she's scared it's going to happen again with this pregnancy, and that I wasn't going to be there with her. I reminded her that this camping trip was only going to be for 2 days. I'm only a few hours away, and that I highly doubt anything is going to happen while I'm gone for the weekend. She told me, do whatever you want. I went camping last weekend, and when I came home, my wife has been in bad mood ever since. I tried to discuss it with her because I don't understand why she's so mad at me. And she tried saying that I never prioritize her, and that I need to grow up because I'm a dad now. Then she proceeded to call me a self-absorbed a-hat. I feel guilty now. She and my daughter have always been my first priority and my main focus. All I did was go away for 1 weekend. Am I the a-hole? Ordinarily, I would say at 25 weeks, she can manage. But if you have history of a 27-week preemie, then yeah, you're the a-hole. Did the trauma of the first time around escape you? Does the stress of your wife must be under hoping not to go through that again not mean anything? I had a 31-weeker, and the whole situation was the most physically and emotionally traumatic situation I've ever been through. I've never felt so helpless and frightened. I will not put myself through another pregnancy because I can't risk it happening again. Your wife must be having to work really hard to be strong. And for you to just bugger off with your mates at such a vulnerable time is definitely a major a-hole move. I read a title and was prepared to say you weren't the a-hole, but boy was I wrong. Premature birth can be terrifying, and coming up on a point in a pregnancy where something went wrong the last time is a special kind of torture. It wasn't just a weekend. She let you know she was scared and anxious and vulnerable, and you completely dropped the ball. Not to mention what she would have been feeling if she had gone into premature labor without you there. Stop saying your wife and child are your first priority and make them that. You're the a-hole. She and my daughter have always been my first priority and my main focus. All I did was go away for 1 weekend. These sentences contradict each other. You're the a-hole. An oxymoron said by a moron. It's poetic, honestly. You're the a-hole. You ignored your pregnant wife's wishes so you can go camping. Clearly, she's not a priority. At the time you went, she was roughly 5 to 6 months along, which is when it starts getting difficult for her to do things on her own, including looking after your daughter. You need to do something special for your wife, who's going through a lot hormonally and mentally, so that she knows you.
Update. Am I the a-hole for tricking my ex into admitting to her affair? Original post. Pretty much the title. I felt like something was off, so I went through her phone and found messages between her and a male friend that seemed suspect. Discussing meeting up when she'd never mentioned it to me, flirting, talking in coded language about sex, etc. There was nothing overt, but still pretty sketchy. I figured she'd just lie and bury things deeper if I confronted her, and she was actually cheating. So I set up a fake Instagram account and sent her a message saying I knew she was cheating with her friend, had her receipts, and was going to contact her partner in 3 days whether or not she confessed. The next day, she sat me down and admitted to cheating, but wouldn't tell me who it was or how long it had been going on. She was sorry. She loved me and wanted to make things work. It meant nothing, blah blah blah. I told her that I already knew and that it was me who had sent her the message. My ex lost it, and I had to leave the apartment and go stay with a friend to get away from her. She was gone, along with most of her clothes when I came back the next day. She'd completely trashed the place while I was gone. This all happened a few weeks ago, and it has been pretty tough ever since. It sucked having to find a new place to live and separating our stuff while dealing with feeling like crap. To make it worse, I'd met the guy several times, shaken his hand, bought him a drink, thought he was harmless, etc. Mostly I feel like an idiot for having trusted her. I've never cheated on anyone, and I assumed my ex was cut out of the same cloth. My ex is adamant that I am an a-hole for what I did to her, but I don't really feel like I owe her anything. I don't know, am I the a-hole here? Now for the top comments before reading the update. I don't know about being an a-hole, but you're an idiot for still staying in touch with your ex and giving her opinion of you any consideration. I know idiot is harsh, and I don't actually mean it in a nasty way, but more for hyperbole to drive home the point. We'd been together for 4 years and had joint bank accounts, a cat, a car, furniture, etc. It's not easy to untangle all of that unless you're willing to talk. Is the kitty okay? My furry little dude is safe and sound with me. My ex is adamant that I am an a-hole for what I did to her, but I don't really feel like I owe her anything. For what you did to her? Wow, she's desperately trying to find a defensive position when in reality she's victim blaming. I applaud you for what you did, which was to catch her cheating and call her out. Guess the other dude can continue making his deposits because she's morally bankrupt. You should send him a celebratory bottle of wine as a gift for getting her out of your life. Does the other guy know she's a cheater? If not, there's a future r/petty revenge story here. Not a-hole. Yeah, he knew about me. We'd met on several occasions and had been introduced to me as a friend. He's just as gross and morally bankrupt as her. They deserve each other. I don't really feel like I need or want any revenge. I just want her out of my life. Not a-hole. This is just another example of the twisted logic that horrible people often use. She is angry because she wanted to dictate when and if the relationship came to an end. She also felt that it was her right to hide her transgressions. You took away her fundamental right of lying to her partner. I agree. It's wild how she thinks she gets to control the narrative while betraying your trust. She wanted to keep her secret safe and expected you to just accept her lies. You exposed the truth, and that's not your fault. She is mad because she got caught, not because you did anything wrong, OP. Not the a-hole. Now for the first update. So I think my original post must have been shared on Facebook or something because my phone has been blowing up. It's mostly mutual friends and acquaintances asking if I posted it. I told a few people about how I'd caught her cheating, and I guess it wasn't hard to put 2 and 2 together. My ex also tried to call me about 100 times. I know she knows my throwaway username because she sent me a screenshot of the post along with a long abusive message threatening all sorts of things. I blocked her everywhere after that. I want to clear a few things up. Going through her phone was wrong. I get that. To be honest, it's the first time I've ever done anything like that in a relationship, and it was only because there were so many things that gave me bad vibes. Example, late nights out with vague explanations, being caught in various lies, sleeping with her phone under her pillow or leaving it face down on a charger, etc. I left the apartment because my ex has a history of violent histrionics when she doesn't get her way. I didn't want to put myself in a compromising situation where she could either hurt me or make up stories about me hurting her. I had a bug-out bag packed and ready to go before I hit send on a message just in case. She didn't do any real damage to the apartment, just threw my stuff around while having a tantrum. It took a few hours to clear up, and nothing valuable was damaged, so I figured it was easier to just let it slide. I had to stay in contact with her while we divided up our joint finances. furniture, and various other stuff accumulated over a 4-year relationship. As of yesterday, that's all done, which is why I waited several weeks to make the initial post. She's now blocked everywhere. Yes, I took the cat with me. We've both been crashing at my friend's place while I look for a new apartment. He's doing great. He was always my pet anyway. My ex tolerated him at best. I told my ex that I was the one who sent the message because I wanted her to know. I suppose I could have played that hand differently, but I wanted the satisfaction of seeing the look on her face when she found out. It didn't feel that great in hindsight. I'd probably go back and do that differently if I could. I wasn't planning on airing her dirty laundry in social media. Does Reddit count? Because I wanted to be above that sort of juvenile BS. But it seems like the horse has bolted on that now. People know. I don't think there'll be much else to update on after this. I don't intend to ever speak to her again. I doubt her ugly little man has the backbone to come after me. Jane, I know you're reading this. I hope you also read all the comments to the first post. They were savage. You're disgusting. And I am so glad I was able to see your true colors before I wasted any more of my life on you. Good luck with the pathetic goblin you chose over me. I don't know if I should feel more sorry for him or for you. In any case, people of your quality deserve to be together. Oh, and a-hole, she's all yours now, buddy. Good luck with that. Good for you. Continue to move forward and don't let anyone make you doubt yourself for a second that fooling that violent cheater into showing her true face was wrong. Agreed, you did the right thing. It's good that she showed her true colors. Keep moving forward and don't let her negativity bring you down. Going through her phone was wrong. I get that. It's not when you are given a reason. When you can share a toilet seat, you can look at each other's phones. Even more when you share a bed. Even more when she shares a bed with someone else. Now for the second update. Where to begin? Some things have happened since my last update. Yesterday, while I was out, my ex-girlfriend Jane showed up at my buddy's place with a box of my stuff and asked to see me. He said she looked awful. He also said she had a fat lip. I have to admit that I almost caved and called her to see if she was okay. I'm glad I didn't. My ex's sister Hannah texted and asked if we could talk. We always got along and I have no issues with Jane's family, so I called her after I got home. We talked for about an hour. She wanted to apologize for her sister's behavior, but she also told me about some of the things that have been happening over the last few weeks. Jane has been staying with her sister since we split, and a-hole, the guy she was cheating with, has been coming around regularly. They got into a huge fight yesterday, and Jane lost it at a-hole. Her sister had to pull her off him, and a-hole's elbow connected with my ex's face while he was trying to get away from her. Turns out he's not single, and his girlfriend found out about Jane. It also turns out that my ex wasn't his only side piece. After Hannah kicked him out, my ex-girlfriend spilled her guts. She's been lying to her family about everything. She told them that I cheated and she broke up with me. Hannah said that my ex had confided in a couple of her friends about the way she got caught out. One of them saw the original AITA post and sent it to her since the details lined up almost exactly. Her friend must have shared the post with other people too, and from there it kind of snowballed. Hannah said that she's given my ex a week to find somewhere else to stay. So that's it, I guess. It seems like the truth has finally come to light, and you're better off staying away from the drama and focusing on moving forward. Now we can sit back, pop some popcorn, and watch the drama unfold. This is better than Netflix. Yes, sounds like Kopi's ex is Karma's new bestie. Don't you just love Karma? And keep strong and stay the course, and don't let her even try to ask you for a second chance. I'm pretty sure that's why she showed up at my friend's place. All of her options fell through, so she was hoping to manipulate me into fixing things for her. I'd rather pleasure myself with a cheese grater than get back together with her. If you and Jane share any mutual friends, do not go to any parties, in case it's a setup for you both to work it out. In case your ex knows people from your workplace or has access to your work email, give your boss the heads up. Congratulations, Opie, on being free of this clown show. Sorry for your loss, but at the end of the day, doesn't sound like much of a loss. I see this as an absolute win. Last story. My best friend is dating my abuser and wants me to reconcile with him, so I kicked her out of my home. I've tried to write this out for days now, but I keep getting too upset to concentrate, so this might be a bit jumpy. I don't have family in the sense many understand family to be, so I've been pretty much a loner with one exception, my best friend Tammy. We met in middle school and just became joined at the hip. Things changed a bit in college. My parents forced me into a Christian out-of-state college. Tammy applied and got accepted to the other college in the town, so we both went out there and were roommates for 2 of the years, before I met my first ever boyfriend. I will call him Trent. I moved in with him the end of junior year, and I don't know when it started happening, but he went from charming and affectionate to controlling. I don't wish to upset anyone, so I will hit the pause button and warn you that below is some of the things he did for me to label him abusive. He would put me down and hint he could find someone better, or that if he cheats, it will be my fault since I wasn't this or that enough. It started to get physical senior year. At first, it was him pushing me out of the way if he was walking by and I was in the path for whatever reason. Then he would slap me in arguments, calling me worthless, a waste of his time in young years, a broken toy no one will love. I didn't have any real self-esteem, so I stayed, thinking I was the problem, and when I called home about it, I was told that the problem was me. I started to make my exit plan the day after I graduated. He had proposed, and I hesitated, and he screamed at me to ask why. Then he swung and punched the wall right next to my head. I fell to the floor in fear, and he tried to comfort me and basically forced me into sex. When I woke up the next morning, the ring was on my finger, and he forced me again and later called it makeup sex, saying he forgave me for the way I treated him. That is the extremely short explanation, but there are so many stories of him forcing me into bed, hitting me, and threatening to end me and more. So I started to make a plan. I found a shelter in the city nearby. I started hiding things in the trunk of my car. I was in the service industry then, and so I would take more shifts whenever I could, and hide my cash tips in a box of tampons in my purse. And I finally was ready and left him. Left my phone, I had a new cheap one, and never went back. Tammy knew him and lived near us, but she didn't know about my plan. She messaged me on social media and I told her what happened. All of what happened. So she played dumb when he came around asking where I was, spinning the story that I was self-harming and he is calling the police to find me. He never found me. That was years ago. I am now 36 and Tammy's too. Trent is 38. Tammy became a bit religious, but I told her as long as she is happy and safe, I don't care what she leans on in faith. She started to invite me out to her church 4 years ago, and I kept saying no, until I very firmly said if she brought it up again, I would just walk out or hang up. I'm not against anyone believing what they want, I just don't want or need to be sucked into it. I honestly do not mean any offense to anyone of any faith. I myself am just agnostic, and if that ever will change, I will decide on my own, but I doubt it will. She got a job 2 years ago overseas. I acted excited for her, and I was. But I was also deeply devastated. Without her, I had no one else. By this time, I wasn't in contact with much of my family, and I do have surface-level friends, but no one that's known me in a real sense. I worked it out with my counselor and just carried on. We stayed in touch online and video chatted a lot. She would show me London, and I would show her my transition to moving to Texas. We would chronicle our explorations of our new cities. And then one day, it started to slow down on her end right around the time she went to visit a friend in our old college town. She then asked if she flew to Texas sometime this summer. Could she stay with me a few days, and I excitedly agreed. So early this month, just a few weeks ago, she came here. She was off the whole first day, but I figured she was tired. Then the next day, we went out and got drunk. She started to cry and I got us an Uber back to my place and I asked her what was wrong. That's when she asked me not to hate her and told me everything. She's with Trent. She's been with him almost a year. I was too stunned to even say anything, and she went on and on about how it's not what I think and he has changed. She told me he found Jesus and turned his life around and deeply regrets the way he treated me. The more she talked, the more I just shut off. I didn't even have it in me to feel anger. I just stared at her, frozen as she talked, until she said, "Please just say something." So I did. I told her to get the heck out. She started to explain it all again, that she hated him forever, but they kept running into each other. He goes to church and he showed he has changed, bloody blah. I didn't interrupt her, but when she stopped talking again, I just repeated myself. She argued more, and I would just listen and repeat until she grabbed her stuff and left. It was silent between us for a week, until my dad texted me that Tammy called my parents crying and told me to get over myself. After all, it's not like I wanted to get back with him, right? And that's what I get for living with a man I wasn't married to. Then she texted the next week rehashing her argument and pretty much demanding I video chat with him to see for myself that he's changed and forgive him. She then blamed me that they can't take the next steps in their relationship because I don't have a forgiving heart and that I was malicious when I kicked her out. I've spent all of this week trying to figure out if I am insane to think this is a huge betrayal. A deal breaker. I mean, who even dates their friend's ex? For one. But this? I blocked her after she hinted that my version of things was exaggerated and malicious. But I don't have other friends to turn to about this. I don't think I am, but my and her family thinks I am the a-hole. At least for kicking her out in a strange city alone when she was just being honest with me. Am I? Now for the comments. Your so-called best friend is playing you for a fool, and you gotta call it like it is. A hot mess wrapped in betrayal. Dating your abuser? Girl, that's not just crossing a line, it's leaping over it with no look back. Kicking her out wasn't just right, it was necessary. You don't need that kind of disrespect and trauma reopening nonsense in your life. And her trying to preach about forgiveness? That's her trying to wash her own guilt away, not about helping you heal. Listen here, don't you dare feel bad for putting yourself first. You ain't no rehabilitation center for poorly raised folks pretending to be friends. Cut her off. Cut that nonsense off. And don't you look back. You're not the crazy one here. She and anyone who's siding with her are. You keep that head high and that door shut to toxic messes like that. Cut her off and cut your damn family off, Opie. They're siding with your abuser instead of their own damn daughter. They're not a family to you. You are worse with them in your life. You will make new friends. These people are all toxic and are just going to keep hurting you. Rip off the band-aid. Get rid of all of them. Who here can see that the abuser went after the ex-friend to stay close to Opie? It's so freaking obvious. And that their relationship can't move forward until he gets FaceTime with her? Yeah. That is manipulative AF.